It's good to be with you guys tonight, and I want to share with you just for a little bit about vision and direction and what does God want to do in your ministry. And so we're going to look at the phrase, hindsight is 2020. What does that mean? Usually, it's when you make a big mistake and you're looking back and you say, wow, what was I thinking? I should have seen that. Now I see where I messed up. And you're looking back and saying, okay, don't do that again. And I do believe in learning from our mistakes. That's important to do. You want to fail forward, learn from that, and move forward. But unfortunately, that's sometimes how we drive our ministries. We look back and say, okay, nope, that didn't work. We're not going to do that anymore. Or we look and say, oh, wow, that was really good. I want to keep doing that. And I'm not saying stop doing stuff that's working, but is it taking you towards your goal, towards your vision that God has for your church? And so in these times, we want to instead begin looking at what are some needs of our congregation? What are some needs of our community around us? What are some strengths that we have that we can use our gifts to be able to minister and reach people? What is it we're passionate about? We can take these things and begin to look at those and develop our vision statement. But now we want to begin with making sure that we're in line with our pastor's vision. Make sure that we're in line with what it is he wants to do, what it is God spoke to him for your local church, for that local body. And my number one goal, my number one responsibility as a children's pastor is to serve my lead pastor, to serve him. Now, that's specific to children's ministry. I mean, we can look at that and narrow it down a little bit and say I'm helping him in that area. But it's to serve him, not to serve myself. And so I need to make sure that I'm in line with what it is he wants to see happen in our church. Now, once we've done that, you may say, wait a minute, I don't even have a clue. Begin to talk to your pastor. Schedule some times where you can meet with him and see what it is that makes him tick. That what is it that's burning on his heart, and get to know him, find out, and schedule it soon. Now, don't be pushy, but schedule it soon. And so once you know that, once you know his heart, then begin to pray. God, how can we take what's you spoke into him, what's stirring inside of me, and turn this into the vision that you have for this church? To be able to write it down and see which direction we're going. One thing that I like is a quote from Andy Stanley. He says, everybody ends up somewhere in life. Some people end up there on purpose. And these are the ones with vision. And so, we're all going to get somewhere. Did we get there on purpose? Is that really where we intended to be? Was it where God intended us to be? You can do good things and still never even come close to fulfilling his vision for you. And so let's look at this for a minute. Say the vision of your church is this. We will proclaim the good news of Jesus through worship, ministry, and outreach. If that's the vision of the church, I need to stop and think, okay, God, how can we accomplish this in the lives of children? Well, we could narrow it down and simplify it to, we will help children learn to love God and serve others. Yeah, I know, it sounds simple, right? But that's exactly what we want. We want something that people are going to be able to grab hold of, learn, know, and live it. We want them to just live this out. You want everybody, your parents, volunteers, everyone to know this. And you want them to be able to be excited about it. So yeah, keep it simple. Keep it something that they can do. And then once you have that vision statement, begin to make a plan. You want to make a plan to say, how are you going to get there? I live in South Carolina, and my family lives in Oklahoma and Tennessee, and so we travel there a couple times a year to be able to go see and visit them. And each one of these, there's a couple different paths we can take to get there. We can go take the low route and go through Georgia, Atlanta, hit Alabama and Mississippi, and then cut on up to get into Tennessee. Or we can go ahead and as soon as we hit Atlanta, head up to Tennessee, and then hit I-40 and go straight across Tennessee till we get to Arkansas, and then keep making our way over. But either one of those, two different options to get to the same goal. And so what I'm getting at is, with the vision that God gives you for your ministry, you need to make a plan of which way are you going to go to get to it. And so identify what is important. Now, is it in worship? Is it relationships? Is it fun, fellowship, that type of stuff? What's important to your senior leadership, to your pastor? What does he value? And then once you find those things, don't be afraid to be daring and try something. Do something different to accomplish the vision here. Make sure it's something that, you guys can really get in and say, this is what we see God speaking. Last time I went to my parents, we took a different route. Instead of going through Atlanta, Georgia, or going up through Asheville and then Knoxville, we decided to take, which is kind of more the straight approach, even though none of it's straight, but a shorter route to go through the upstate of South Carolina and then just clip Georgia and North Carolina before we get into Tennessee. And this route, it was a different experience. It was a little bit more interesting, better views, and we begin to value that more than the extra 20 minutes it might take to get there. And so for us, the experience was more important than the time. And that actually reminds me of my church. We just finished doing 2 services. We have done this for 5 years now. And one thing that I found out and noticed along the way, which I wish I'd have picked up on the first year, was that they value experience more than time. And so we saw this in that the services never ended on time. I was always rushed and pressured to be able to make the transitions, have classes prepped and ready for the second service so that they get something nice and fresh. And so when we look at that, I thought, God, what is going on? They're driving me nuts. And then I realized, wow, they value the experience more than the time. And so one thing that we did to adjust for this, we found the value, and then we made a plan for it, was we began to plan our services to start 10 minutes after what they were scheduled to start. That way we had time for those that were coming in late and those that were being picked up late to be able to be checked out. We changed the activities before service, in between those services. Instead of it being a specific thing that it started before each service, because the first service had already done it, and they were still there while the second service was coming in. We turned it into a fellowship time where we could connect these 2 services and the kids that were in them so that they could get to see each other, spend some time together, and build relationships. And so we kind of turned that around to what it was we wanted it to be for our group. And so when we look at that, we want to go ahead and make sure that we're looking at what is important. What do we value? And so we had to see then, it was experience, and we made a plan for it. And so then set some goals. Set some goals, some markers along the way that are going to help you say, okay, we're getting closer to the vision. We're following and we're tracking along this path. We're on our way there. And so for us, when we travel, we're looking out at, are we going to stop at Quick Trip? Can we make it to Quick Trip to get some gas and get some snacks? Love the taquitos there, and we're fans of Quick Trip, and so we'll make that one of our goals. Okay, make it there before we stop to get any snacks, or that's where we're going to get gas. So then another goal that we'll have is making sure that we stop at Taco Bueno in Arkansas. It's the first one we get to. We only get to have it when we go to Oklahoma, so we make sure that, okay, we want to schedule that to where lunch or dinner time we're making it there so we can eat, because we're going to stop anyway. And so that comes into the planning and the goals of, okay, so we need to make sure that we're leaving at a time that gets us there. We make sure that, okay, a goal, make it to this city to stay at the hotel so that we can get up the next morning and make it for Taco Bueno. I know it sounds crazy, right? You're obviously not a Bueno head. But anyway, looking at this, we're making plans and then we're making goals to get to these certain places. And so when it comes to making these goals, I like to use the SMART criteria. SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely. Specific: clearly define what you want to see happen. Measurable: you need to know that if you can actually meet the goal. Did it happen? We want to see kids grow in Christ. Well, that's not really measurable. What are you going to add to that? We want to see them grow in Christ in their Bible knowledge. Okay, so then you can be able to test that and find out, did they actually do that? Is it attainable? Is it something that's realistic for those kids that you're ministering to, for those that you're reaching? Is it relevant? Does it go back to the vision statement of, am I fulfilling what God's called us to, or is it something separate? If I'm going to Oklahoma over here, I don't need to go to Myrtle Beach first before I go there. Now, Myrtle Beach is great. They got great shopping and some activities, some things to do, but it's not in line with the direction I'm headed. So I need to make sure that it's relevant, that it's in line with the vision. And then timely, make sure that we've set times on this of when we're going to accomplish these things. And keep them realistic. And then be flexible with it for in case stuff comes up to make some adjustments there. And so we'll want to make sure that we're smart in the goals that we do. So allow some little wiggle room there. But back to children's ministry, what are you looking at next year, 3 years from now, 5 years from now? Where do you want to be then? Well, let's go back to the vision statement from earlier. We will help children learn to love God and serve others. Now, if we're looking at that as our vision statement, we want to set some goals there. And one could be to form a leadership team for the kids to serve on. See how we're teaching them to serve. And so, teach them, give them opportunities to serve on the worship team or in media, creating skits, being an usher and helping with service. Different things like that. I've even had them teaching the message before in our kids' church. And so giving them opportunities to be able to serve there. And so once you do that, then you go ahead and start scheduling it out, making a plan, put a time on when you're going to have this kick off. When will you begin sign-ups, or when are they going to practice, and start to look through these different things. And so your goal could be that by November 1st, we'll have our first I Serve Kids team. And so did you plan in time for them to be able to practice? Is that an appropriate time? Do you need to schedule differently? So you could use that as a goal and then be able to work towards that. One thing I like is the vision for Church Got a Prophecy. The Church Got a Prophecy will be Christ-exalting, holiness, spirit-filled, all nations, disciple-making church planting movement with a passion for Christian union. Now, our leadership development department has been given a goal by God to develop 10,000 leaders by 2020. And so when we look at that, the vision is disciple-making, church planting. Okay, we're developing leaders, we're making disciples, and some of these are probably going to go out and plant some churches, so good, lines up right there. And so we see that that's working on that. And so I want to make sure that we are fulfilling the vision, fulfilling the goal. I look back at this, I saw this the other day, and some of you may have too. It was a quote by Henry Ford from the Ford Motor Company. It said, "If I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses." You see, they wouldn't have been looking out ahead and said, just make what we have better. And he said, no, I want to see something different. When we're doing stuff for God, we need to remember this is for Him. Be daring, be adventurous. Let Him lead you in this. I mean, I'll be honest, 10,000 leaders in just over 3 years, that's pretty daring. That's pretty adventurous. And, it's could be even considered by some to be a little bit ambitious. But when God's in this, He says, no problem. I've got a plan for this. I mean, He added 3,000 to the church in one day. I think He can handle this. But we have to go ahead and step in and say, we're going to do this. We're going to follow after where God's leading in this. And so set those goals. Now, we're going to see some obstacles come up. Obstacles. I like looking at Joshua for this because God gave him some very good encouragement before he gets started. He speaks into Joshua some promise, some vision, and before this all starts off and takes place, he tells him this. He says, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Don't turn from the law. Stay focused on what I've told you. Meditate on it, and then be strong and courageous. He knew that Joshua's faith was going to be tried and tested. They were going to see some great obstacles, some giants, some battles. And he wanted to encourage him at the beginning, don't give up. Stay faithful to what I've told you. And when it comes to God's vision, we need to stay faithful to that. In Kidman, we see plenty of obstacles, whether it's resources, having space, volunteers, or even doubt and fear can be obstacles that we have to overcome. Well, when we look at these things, what are we going to do to overcome them? Well, one thing we want to do is start off at the beginning and count the cost. Be prepared at the beginning to know what you're coming up against. Before you ever even share your vision, do the prep work ahead of time. Begin to prepare and plan. Identify, what do we need to accomplish this? The who, what, when, and where. Get a good idea of that. Have it down so you can start to be able to make those plans and say, okay, this is it. Because that's the bones of it. But people are more concerned about the why. They want to know, okay, why are we doing this? Don't just have a bake sale to send kids to camp. I mean, that's a good thing. But have a bake sale to see if these specific kids. Maybe you put their pictures up. Maybe you have them stand in front of the congregation. Do something. Maybe they're there at the bake sale selling it. These specific kids, an opportunity to experience God in a closeness they haven't seen before. An opportunity to build lifelong relationships that strengthen them in their walk with Christ. To create memories that they will carry with them to adulthood. Now see, there you go. That's something I'd buy some cookies for. Okay, I'd probably buy cookies anyway, but I might buy a few extra cookies. I might buy the big cake then, and maybe even give them a few extra bucks because I can support that. That's something I want to be a part of. And so let them know the why. That's going to help us overcome some of these obstacles of funding, of resources people will want to get involved in. In fact, speaking of people getting involved, give people an opportunity to use their gifts. One of my biggest supporters in kids ministry here, he's never taught a class. He's never been a small group leader. He hasn't led anything for that matter. But he helps out with props and environment whenever we're doing VBS or some other events. He helps us set up. He helps us tear down. Now, he's not great with design and all that, but he's willing to help. So he just comes in and helps. And he's at all of these things. As soon as we see have an event, what can I help you out with? When are we going to do this? He's there. He also promotes the ministry in the hallway when he's an usher or working security. He's there promoting children's ministry. And you know, he uses what he has, who he is, to be able to invest in our kids. Now, he would never consider himself a children's minister, but I know better. I see the investment he puts into the events that we have and the things we do to be able to serve our kids. So he's not in a class, but he's investing in the vision that we have and helping us share that because he is excited about it. So find people that are passionate and excited about it and give them an opportunity to share. The other day I was in a seniors meeting and our director was up there, Vince. She was talking and she was doing a devotion. And she began to share a story about her granddaughter. Her granddaughter Sarah found out she was having her fourth child, and she may need prayer immediately for that. Those just heard, I'm having my fourth child, so I understand. But anyway, early in her pregnancy, they identified her baby as a T18 baby. It has something to do with the chromosomes, and I'm not a doctor and all that, but it wasn't good news. And so, in fact, they said that there's only a 25% chance of her making it to the next month, not to delivering, but to the next month. And so they scheduled the appointment, and they thought, you're not even going to be pregnant when you get here, but we'll go ahead and put it down. Well, they come on in, and sure enough, she's still pregnant. But this time, they say, okay, at this stage in it, there's only a 5% chance you'll make it to the next month. And if somehow you do make it past this and you make it to delivery, we just know that your child's going to be stillborn. And so Catherine stood strong and courageous, and she told the doctor, let's see what God has in mind. And she began to trust in what he was doing. Well, the doctor was indignant and scheduled blood work to prove that this was a T18 baby. They did the tests, and the results come back. And the technician looks at it and says, now, what are you doing here? Everything's perfectly normal. There's absolutely nothing wrong with this baby. You see, they had been telling her that you need to abort this child. You need to give up on this child. Don't even worry about it. In fact, it's going to be more pain if you keep pushing and trying and get to the end and you don't achieve it. Oh wait, that started to get into the goals. If you don't see them born, then if you just go ahead and abort that child now. Well, as soon as that happened, the doctor burst in to see this test results for herself, and she could not believe it. She could not understand how this has happened. Now we're here. And Tyson is 2.5 years old. And he's a normal little boy. Everything happened. They said he wouldn't make it past 18 months. Well, okay, he's already gone that by another year. They say different things are going to happen, but we've seen that they've made it past it. And as I listened that day, the Lord began to speak to me and say, there are many of you that God has given you a dream and a vision for children's ministry, for serving kids, and don't abort it. Don't listen to the critics. Don't listen to these other people, but stay focused on what God is speaking to you. Stay focused on this. Don't give up on it. And when you see all these different things, stay focused on what he wants to do. I tell you, that day it really hit me strong and it hit me hard that sometimes we just give up on this stuff. He says, don't give up on it. I have plans and dreams for you and I want to see this accomplished. Well, I want to thank you guys so much for your time today. I pray that you guys are blessed as you seek out and follow after God, and look forward to hearing stories.